Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe der Klemmbaustein-Lyrik und heute mal wieder mit einem Interview, das ich via die letzten Interviews alle bei den Fan-Media Days in Billund geführt habe, Ende Mai 2019. Und in diesem Fall geht es um Architecture. Rok Kobe habe ich dort gesprochen, der verantwortlich ist eigentlich für die neueren Sets, alle. Und da habe ich ihn unter anderem ja auch gefragt, da scheint ja irgendwie so ein Wechsel mal stattgefunden zu haben mit der Ausrichtung. Da werden wir gleich was zu hören. Und er wird ausführlich auch das Empire State Building vorstellen, von dem ich ja erst dachte, ja, schön Empire State Building, aber bautechnisch sicherlich eher ein Graus, weil alles das Gleiche. Aber er hat mich eines Besseren belehrt. Insbesondere steckt da im wahrsten des Wortes deutlich mehr drin, als ich gedacht hätte. Und das sehen wir uns jetzt mal an.
Now we are here at Architecture, and next to me is whom?
I'm Rok Kobe. I'm the senior designer on the Lego architecture and creator expert lines.
What's what's your way to Lego?
I've came a full circle, so from playing with Lego as a kid, then being inspired by Lego to go into architecture, striving to design big building skyscrapers while studying. I came into architecture, was a full-time practicing architect, being in the academia in architecture as well. But then my wish about designing huge and important buildings came through with Lego down the line. So I've started as an exterior consultant within the new business group back in 2011, where we were starting to develop the Lego Architecture Studio, if you remember it, the big white box with a significant book.
You're from your profession, you're architecture?
Yes, I'm an architect by profession. Yes.
Okay, that's so interesting. So perhaps there are some questions about this. But from where you come from?
I'm from Ljubljana, Slovenia. The only one, as far as I know, within the Lego group.
Okay.
That's from the small country where the Adriatic meets the Alps.
And which of these sets are from you directly?
I've been involved with pretty much all the sets of the architecture line since 2011, so 30 and counting. And all of them here are mine, at least in the conceptual phase. Some of them, like Paris, was carried through the final model committee by my colleague Lars Joe Hadlik, while Trafalgar Square was finished by Stensik Andersen, while these four were began and finished by me alone. So I'm lucky, fortunate, or a bit of an exemption in a way that I am working on the single line for my entire work length at Lego. 4 of those years were freelance as well, so that's a bit out of the norm as well. But it's now 8 years and going.
I think there's something had changed in the area of architecture. When I remember the first sets, or the first thousands sets made especially from Mr. Tucker, I think, they were small and very abstract. It changed, that's right?
Yes.
They are more detailed and bigger.
It did. It has evolved. It's involved in more ways than one. It includes far more detail, color. We're moving beyond a simple massing representation. We're capturing many more things, including the feel, the energy of the city, let's say, in the skylines, as well as building techniques of the original in the latter building models that I hopefully will be able to share with you.
Who decides something like that? So I think when you're changing a whole idea of it, not completely, but I think you can realize this. Is this a decision of one person or of a group or of the boss?
It's an evolution. So if you would look at the timeline of the Lego architecture sets, you'll see that each following one, I've started with the normal design. I started with the Big Ben. Was it launched in 2012? I know it was designed in 2011. So it's a small evolution. That one, for example, was the first one to cut part of the building, let's say, so that it's not just a standalone. So it has cut a part of the Westminster Palace as well. So every set introduced a new thing, something fresh, something novel. And then the whole progression leads us to where we are today. And hopefully we have a long way to go.
So it's not the end of the evolution. So Empire State Building must not have been the biggest one.
Oh, hopefully not. Hopefully not. We'll see what the future has in store.
I think what's also very interesting, normally Lego says no churches, no religion. Venice, that's the, yeah. There is a church, I think.
Yes, it is. I mean, we're not, this is architecture first and foremost, so it's the architectural merit of the building that matters, not what its function or its role in history or anything secondary might have been. So this is first and foremost an architecture line.
But so, for example, when you have something like Rome or coming or something like that, there could be also churches in the background. So it's not a no-go and what's not a mistake.
I mean, I'm not allowed, of course, to discuss future products. But
okay.
These are oyster. I mean,
okay. Also changed. I think that's the same reason, perhaps, as you said, evolution. In the first sets, there were a lot of information about the designer, Mr. Tucker, I think, a lot of times. And then, no designer anymore is mentioned in the sets. I think in the press releases and so on, they say, and also the designer is mentioned, but it's still not. It's not anymore inside the manual.
I was lucky enough to have had 5 sets at the beginning where the designer was mentioned. There was also a set done by another designer, by a German colleague. I mean, a German architect that wasn't a Lego designer per se that helped out. But since the way things turned out, it would have been a very boring line of designers, since it was mostly me working on it. Then for 8 years straight, it was far from being fair to the other designers within the Lego group that would also deserve recognition on many of their great products, with only one line having the call out of a specific designer. And it's, I mean, in a way, I don't subscribe to that, in honesty, because we see that in the architectural profession. It's more of it's building up the cult of personality, while in reality a building is not designed by Gary, by 400 architects or something working in their design bureaus and so forth. And the same goes with Lego. These aren't, even though I've played a big role in designing it, there are so many other people involved that should get credit as well. So,
is your profession as an architect helping when designing Lego sets, or is it completely different?
Oh no, for me it helps tremendously. It helps with the understanding of the original building. It's then being able to use the tools to translate that, to find the module of the original, to translate it into Lego sets. I would think that my strength actually lies in the skills that I have as an architect. I was a very mediocre builder of Lego at best, if judged purely by my Lego building skills. So education definitely plays a role.
We have also here the Empire State Building, and you have also the version in parts. I think that's the reason. When I think about building this architecture set in the future, it seems to be very similar in a lot of parts, but when I see inside, it's very different. What was the special thing about this set, even not only building up, and that's it?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where the core of the experience lies. You have that on camera? Does it show?
Yes, it's inside.
So that people interested will be able to see it as well? Because on the first glance, you would be excused to think that it's a boring building experience. But that's why I have it in parts for you today. That I hopefully will be able to prove it that architecture is far from being skin deep, so that we're not only about the looks, but that we put great effort into making this a pleasurable building experience. So, on the first glance, if we stick to the building, it does look like a fairly simple build which holds an infamous record now. It has the most of a single part of any Lego set to date. So more than 650 or even more of the grill plates. But as you'll see, you won't be doing just that, not by a long shot. The first thing I'd like to point out is you can see that it's a extremely stable structural model. It's because it's devised in sections. It's a giant three-dimensional puzzle that's being able to interlock it from the very top to the bottom, so that when you're picking it up, the forces actually transfer all the way to the bottom plates, so that it's like picking it up from the bottom. The concept that I've also used in the Statue of Liberty, if you had the chance of building that one.
Yeah, I know.
So that's where the heart which connects the base is hidden. And the first thing I could point out to you is that from the very beginning, the model is outside the Lego grid. So the elevation is in half plates, because 2 modules equals 5 plates, yet we have 3 modules here that then seamlessly continue. So the entire building is offset by half a plate, and that's the transition that happens here. How that's constructed, I'll leave it as a surprise for the builders, but I'll show some of the interesting things that go into the construction of it, where I've alluded to the original building. So when you're building the next part of the puzzle, you're putting that on top. And since that is already now out of the system by half a plate, it couldn't be connected on the bottom, so it's being held in place by the slope, so that that element doesn't disconnect when being built upon further. So that slope is there structurally, but at the same time there are 8 escalators in the Empire State Building. So you already have a play of the real life facts of the building dictating how the Lego model is being built. Little things like that continue then throughout the build, whereas through the color scheme, that's quite evocative. You're building different parts which help with the structure, but at the same time serve as the lobby to which you enter from the 5th Avenue. And there's the Golden Mural. I don't know if you had the chance of being in the Empire State Building. I can highly recommend it. So there's the Golden Mural where the lobbies and the elevators are. And these are the things that you only experience while you're building it. So this is not something that is being shown later on. It's for your pleasure during the build only. You're connecting the construction in different ways from the sides, interlocking everything. And once you arrive to the shaft, to the core of the building, there's a detail that I'm proud of. The original Empire State Building is built using steel girders, which are riveted together. So, as you can see, that's a Lego representation of such a steel girder. So hopefully by now I've changed your mind, and that the insides of the building aren't simply bricks stacked, but that they're actually following the logic of the original structure. So what holds the building in place is the steel structure to which the hanging facade is being attached from the sides, just like on the original.
Interesting. So I never expected that. That's nice.
Now hopefully I'm changing your opinion of what you thought of as a dull build to begin with.
It looks great, but what I now see, it's coming much higher in my expectation. What's that?
I'm glad to hear. That then continues, and the whole building flow is then in the interesting, more intricate building parts are then being intertwined with moments of zen, where you would took a little breather from paying serious attention to where you could just lay some of the tiles on a more pleasurable build, and then in turn makes you again prepared to follow up with different building techniques in the higher levels of the building. Whereas we're offsetting things, we're using interesting offsetting techniques for that, but in order for them to be structurally stable, we're using sideways building to support it. But since these aren't in the system, since it's offset, then we interlock it by using different building techniques, which then makes it super stable, which then enables it to transfer the load from one layer to the next, which then transfers it to the next, and so forth. So hopefully this has changed your mind.
Perhaps it's also working against earthquakes.
That's definitely the case in San Francisco, which is a very earthquake-prone city, so I had to really design it so that it's structurally stable from no matter you pick it. So we do play around with leader storytelling like that.
Is there something of Lego telling you that a lot of people... I ask my community also what I have to ask the designers. And one question sometimes was why a lot of colors inside the buildings. Not only architecture, it's also at creator and so on and so on. You have outside everything in the colors you expect, but inside it's very colorful, like here red and blue. Can you say something about this? Is there something you have to do because of the easy building?
It makes for a much more pleasant building experience. It alleviates any potential mistakes, because you have certain elements in certain colors, so that you can't easily mistake a 1x2 brick with a 1x2 brick that has vertical studs, for example. So they're in a different color, much more easier for you to find. But at the same time, it allows you to do a bit of storytelling in this case, because it's quite an evocative color scheme, right? So it enables you a bit of artistic freedom, but the main purpose is to provide for a smoother building experience. Different colors reduce the search time you would need for looking for that one particular element, because if it's in blue, you will find it immediately.
What's more interesting for you? Do you like more to build something like the Empire State Building, a big thing with very interesting building techniques and so on? It's more in like Paris and San Francisco, these views, or something like a small building more a place like Trafalgar Square. Which one is what you like more to build, or to develop?
I mean, there are different approaches to it. Of course, in a skyline, basically every brick is visible, so you have to be really mindful of how you choose the Lego elements, of how you construct things in order to make it a nice building experience as well. You don't want bricks that are similar in shape, that would be similar in color as well, because that could lead to potential mistakes and frustration during the build. So you have to pay attention to the stringent safety and quality standards that Lego has, so that it doesn't pose a stabbing issue at any point in time. There's quite a few parameters that you have to keep in mind at all times, but then you're prioritizing different ones with different builds. So each comes with its own challenges.
Okay. A French guy asked me why you put the flag of France up on the Eiffel Tower. There is no flag upside there, but it's on one of the other buildings.
On the Grand Palais. We allow ourselves a bit of freedom from time to time. It just seems like an iconic thing to do, and it provides that extra splash of color that's needed on what is otherwise a monotone building. So hopefully our French fans will be able to excuse us.
And last question, when I look at which are the buildings in the last years coming from Lego, there's a lot of things from America and England. We have not so much from Germany or different other areas. What's the reason? Or we have too much churches, which not so possible, so easy to put in an architectural set.
No, that's not at all. It's just I would say it's a bit coincidental. I mean, after all, there was a time where we had the Brandenburg Gate and the Berlin out, and the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the Venice skyline, and the Trevi Fountain. So I might claim that we were very Italian and German oriented at a point in time. So this is just a coincidence now that you might perceive that it's a bit London and New York heavy. But then at the end of the day, New York and London are in a very famous and in a league of their own by the number of prominent landmarks that they have. So it's something from New York is pretty much, but it's definitely not intentional in that respect. So looking forward to many more years in Lego architecture where that might change as well.
Is there a building you would like to build from your own country?
Oh, for sure, but as you know, I'm not able to discuss any future products, and no matter how slim the chance, I'm making sure that I don't divulge any information.
What's the most famous building in Slovenia?
We have a number, of course, but since it's a small country, they're also a bit smaller than one would expect, but nice just the same. Just like every country in the world, I'm sure has their own monuments that they are proud of.
But have you at home your own build? So not an official technic architecture set, but have you built for your own some buildings at your home?
I actually haven't, no, because
only
the
professional ones.
Yes. My Lego building hours are pretty filled up with helping my children as well. So I hardly find the time to ever build something for myself.
Thank you very much. We will see what's happening in the future. And the Empire State Building is grown up in my expectation. And I like to see it then in the summer to get it on my own. Thank you.
I'm glad you feel so. And remember that there's a story behind each and every architecture set.